Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into Robert Kiyosaki's book, Unfair Advantage. We're going to break down what he calls the 5 unfair advantages of the rich, which, as you'll see, are really just 5 different types of financial education. So, the book kicks off with this really powerful idea. It frames financial struggle not as a problem of not having enough money, but as a problem of not having the right kind of knowledge. This really sets the stage for the whole argument. The game of money is winnable, but you gotta learn the rules that they just don't teach you in school. And that really boils down to this central question. All that traditional advice we've heard our whole lives, go to school, get a good job, save money, buy a house, stay out of debt. What if that's actually a recipe for financial struggle in today's world? Let's dive in and see why the book argues it absolutely is. All right, first up, the old rules are broken. We're going to start with the core problem Kiyosaki points to, which is that the world has fundamentally changed, but most of us are still playing with an old, outdated rulebook. Now, this timeline highlights some huge moments when the rules of money were totally rewritten. In 1971, when the US took the dollar off the gold standard, our money basically turned from something real into an IOU. Then, in 99, the information age started, making old job models pretty much obsolete. And that lost decade for stocks, it showed that even safe long-term strategies weren't the sure thing they used to be. And here's where you really see the fallout from all that. The old promise of a job for life, that's been replaced by automation and outsourcing. That safety net of a company pension, now it's a 401k that you have to manage, and it's at risk. And the idea that your house is your safest asset, well, millions of people learned the hard way after 2007, that's not always true. So what's the result of playing by these old rules? A Boston College report mentioned in the book found that Americans are a staggering $6.6 trillion short on their retirement funds. I mean, that's not a small gap. It's a massive chasm. It really highlights a system-wide failure to prepare people for this new financial world. Okay, section 2. Why the system fails you. So, if the rules have changed so much, why are so many of us completely unprepared? The book points the finger directly at 2 huge systems that shape our thinking, our schools and our financial institutions. Let's start with education. Kiyosaki's take here is, well, pretty blunt. He says schools are great at creating employees for an economy that doesn't really exist anymore. They're basically preparing kids for their parents' world, not the one they're actually going to live in. And this gets to a really crucial idea in the book, the difference between academic, professional, and financial education. Schools are fantastic at the first 2. They teach you concepts, and they teach you how to get a job. But they totally miss the third one, how to actually think creatively about money, how to make it work for you, and how to build wealth outside of just a paycheck. All right, the second culprit, according to the book, is the financial system itself, which the author claims is essentially rigged. It's a system that benefits the people who understand the game, often at the expense of everyday people who are just following the conventional advice to save their money. So how does that actually work? Well, the idea is that when governments print more money, the value of every single dollar you've saved goes down. That's inflation. It's basically a hidden tax on savers. But at the exact same time, the tax laws are set up to give huge advantages to people who use debt to buy assets, like real estate or businesses. All right, so this brings us to section 3 and the core solution in the book. If the old rules are broken and the system is stacked against you, the only way to win is to get what Kiyosaki calls an unfair advantage. And that advantage is knowledge. Now, we're not talking about getting a PhD in economics here. Not at all. The book defines financial education in really practical terms. It's the real-world ability to read and, more importantly, control your own numbers. And everything, I mean everything, boils down to this one simple, game-changing distinction. Forget the complicated accounting terms. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. The book argues that really truly understanding this is the absolute first step. And that simple idea is the key to understanding this, the cash flow quadrant. The argument is that real financial freedom is found on the right side of this chart. On the left side, as an employee or self-employed person, you're trading your time for money. On the right side, as a business owner or investor, you build or buy assets that make money for you, whether you're working or not. Okay, on to section 4, how the rich use debt. Now, this next idea is probably going to sound completely backward to a lot of people, especially if you've been taught your whole life that all debt is bad. Yet this flies right in the face of all that cut up your credit cards advice. The book argues that debt is just a tool. And, like any tool, it can be used to build something amazing, or it can be used to destroy things. The financially educated learn how to build with it. And here's the crucial difference. Bad debt, think credit cards you use for vacations or a new TV, is used to buy liabilities, things that go down in value and just suck money out of your wallet. Good debt is used to buy assets, like a rental property, that actually generate cash flow, enough to pay for the debt and then some. And this leads us to the ultimate secret of that I for investor quadrant, OPM, other people's money. Using debt from a bank lets you control a really big asset with just a little bit of your own cash. That creates leverage, and as we're about to see, it creates the potential for infinite returns. Okay, so for our final section, we're putting it all together. We've talked about the broken rules, the flawed systems, the power of knowledge, and using debt strategically. This last part is about focusing all of that on one single thing. You know how everyone says to live below your means? The book flips that on its head and says you should expand your means instead. The rule is simple. Before you go buy a liability, like a fancy new car, you first have to buy an asset that generates enough cash flow to pay for that car. And this right here, this is the holy grail according to the book. The formula for an infinite return. Step 1, you find a good deal on an asset. Step 2, you use other people's money to buy it. Step 3, you use the cash flow and the tax breaks to get all of your initial investment back out. So now you own a cash flowing asset with zero of your own money in the deal. Your return is literally infinite. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway. At the end of the day, the book argues that your greatest asset isn't your savings account or your job or your house. It's your financial knowledge. It's the one thing that can't be taken away from you, and it's the one thing that has the power to build all the other assets. Which leaves us with the book's final challenging question. The most important investment you can ever make isn't in some stock or a piece of real estate. It's an investment of your most precious resource, your time. Because the ultimate unfair advantage, as the book concludes, is simply the decision to invest in your own financial education.